Okay, so we kind of ran into a situation when it comes to our coverage over the X-Men. And honestly, when I'm done explaining everything to you, you're going to be like, yeah, that was Marvel in the 1990s just doing too much when it comes to telling a simple story for one character. And let me explain the whole idea of this situation. So, as we all know, when Cable first appeared in Marvel Comics, he first appeared in New Mutants number 98. It was a cool moment. This cool character appears, and everybody wanted to know who he was. Now, down the road, we did learn that, yeah, he was the son of Cyclops and Madeline Pryor. That made things really cool. But then there was this big question. What happened to Cable growing up in the far future? Because by that point, all we got were just small pieces here and there, but no complete story of the origin of Cable. And so you have Marvel say, you know what? Let's go ahead, sit down, and try to explain the origin of Cable with him being in the future growing up. But here comes the big problem. You see, for Marvel, they couldn't just tell you the origin of Cable in just one single storyline. Like, hey, here's this 3 or 4 part miniseries that gives you the complete origin of Cable. No, they couldn't do that. Instead, what they did was they gave you multiple series that kind of told you different points in time of Cable's origin. But here comes the crazy part. You see, when it comes to our situation leading into the Phalanx Covenant, the next storyline we had to cover was the adventures of Cyclops and Jean Grey. But here comes the big problem. That storyline takes place after another storyline that came out years after that one did, and that was called X-Men Phoenix 99. It came out 5 years after the one we were supposed to cover for today. And so I was all like, okay, we can't cover that storyline just yet because we got to cover this storyline first because this begins the whole idea of the origin of Cable, the whole idea of us learning the origin of the Ascani, the people who have huge connections to Cable. But before we're able to officially talk about today's storyline, we have to jump back over to Excalibur issue number 75. And here's the reason why, because this storyline picks up where that storyline left off at. You see, for Captain Britain, he was lost in time, and the only way to bring him back was to allow Rachel Summers to give up her life, technically, as a way to bring in Brian Braddock back into the present day. Now, the way the book ends, you were kind of left to believe that Rachel Summers would go back to her time because the whole idea that with her being in a different timeline, but also in the past, she was kind of out of time and she was ruining time. And so it kind of felt like with her being there, it was a reason why Captain Britain was not able to come back to the main Marvel universe. And so once she was able to give up her life to bring him back, that was it. But this storyline says technically that was not it. She did not go back to her timeline, the days of future past. Instead, she went into the far future, 2,000 years into the future. And so now we are able to finally dive into today's storyline where we do pick up with Rachel Summers, 2,000 years in the future, but also now she's being confronted by all these different guards who work for the High Lord of this time. Now, the High Lord will be told to you guys here in a moment, but I kind of want to focus on Rachel first. And here's the reason why, because when she does arrive, these guys realize that she's not from their time at all. She's some kind of anomaly. And so their goal is to go ahead and get rid of her. But that's the problem right there for them because she has the power of the Phoenix. She left with the power of the Phoenix at the end of Excalibur 75. And so even though she did travel far in the future, she's still holding on to that power. It allows her to go ahead and take these guys out very easily. But now it's time for her to kind of figure out where in the world is she and what kind of world is this like. And so while you have Rachel Summers being able to discover what this world is like, we're also getting a chance for ourselves to discover what this world is like as well. Now, we do pick up with a character known as Diamanda Nero. Now, I'm going to call her Nero for the sake of the video. Now, Nero is the right-hand man for the High Lord of this time. Honestly, the High Lord is Apocalypse. As a matter of fact, he'll pop up very soon. But for Nero, we also learn that she has the ability to kill off other mutants, but once she does that, she's then able to absorb their mutant ability and use it for their own. And matter of fact, we get an example of that because we see her killing off the last member of the Xavier Collective. Now, the Xavier Collective in this time period were technically a group of rebels who were trying to get rid of Apocalypse, but she had just killed off the last member of that group. But after that, she's then confronted by two people who work right underneath her. Now, guys, real quickly, I am going to mispronounce their names so badly, so please forgive me. But their names are Chevry and also Luminesca, and I really hope I pronounce both those names correctly. Now, they do play a small role in the storyline, but nothing too major. But you do have the two characters tell Nero about the missing person who came out of time, and of course talking about Rachel Summers and how they cannot find her. But while you had the three characters talking to one another, you didn't have Nero be called up by the High Lord, and again, that would be Apocalypse. And so once she goes to meet up with Apocalypse, we get the idea that he will not be in the rest of the book at all. He'll be mentioned, but not really appearing in the book. And the reason why, because he's trying to create a new body for himself to use at the moment. And so while trying to do that, he's kind of like, hey, I'm going to be gone, but I need somebody in charge of my empire. And so he chooses Nero. Now, he also tells us that he kind of feels like the mutant race is slacking off. We learn here that in the far future, the mutants are now first class and the humans are now, well, second class. But the problem is for Apocalypse, his whole idea is the survival of the fittest idea. And so for him, he believes the strong may live, the weak must die. The strong may lead, but once again, the weak must die. And so for Apocalypse, he kind of feels like the mutants are no longer trying to prove who is the strongest among them all. And so he tells Nero, as I go away to work on this new body, I'm telling you, I left behind 3 weapons that you can use as a way to bring back a whole concept for the mutant race. The whole idea of survival of the fittest. Now, of course, you have Nero agree to be in charge, but to also kind of test out the mutant race with the 3 weapons that she had just received. But as we jump over to Rachel Summers, we see her still trying to figure out what this world is truly like. Now, by this point, she had been in this reality for a few months now, but again, she's still trying to figure out what the world could be like. And so while walking around, she realized that she needs a ride to an event that's being run by Apocalypse. But the problem is right now, she can't find a ride. Now, she does run into this cyborg merchant that might have a ride for her, but the problem is this merchant is crooked. And the only reason why she figured out that he is a crooked one because another character known as Blacksmith, this child, was trying to buy an item off the merchant. Unfortunately, the one he bought off of him does not work at all and demands his money back. Now, of course, with this being a crooked cyborg merchant, he said, no, there's no way I'm going to give you your money back. Now, you have Rachel get very upset and go out of her way to beat down on the cyborg merchant. Now, while she's doing that, there are a crowd of people that are kind of hoping that she'll go ahead and kill him off because, again, survival of the fittest. But right now, she's trying her best to hide who she truly is because she knows if she shows the powers of the Phoenix, then most likely Apocalypse will find out about her. And that is a huge problem. Now, after being able to get rid of the cyborg merchant, she does talk to Blacksmith. Now, Blacksmith here is a young child who may look like he's a mutant, but technically he's not one at all. Unfortunately, he's someone who had a genetic defect when it came to him being born into this world. And so that's why he looks different. And so unfortunately, he's not a mutant, but he realized after seeing what Rachel did for him, he's kind of like very intrigued by her and want to be by her side. Now, of course, she says no and she walks away. But we're going to see him again in the last two chapters of this storyline. Now, we do pick up with a character known as Diogenes, and I did look that name up because it is a name in Greek. Now, for Diogenes, we do learn that he's part of some kind of order known as the Order of the Witnesses. Now, when it comes to this order, they make sure to stay hidden from the rest of the world, but their main goal is to witness different huge social and political events happening across the world. Now, occasionally they do step in, but again, their main goal is to make sure they stay hidden from the rest of the world. But for the order, they kind of believe that there's something special about Rachel, that she could be the bloodline of one of the 12. Now, one of the 12 is something we have not talked about yet. And matter of fact, we won't for a good while. But don't worry, sooner or later we will. But with her being a bloodline of one of the 12, they kind of feel like they should go out of their way to watch over her. And so that is where Diogenes comes in. Him and his partner will watch over Rachel for the rest of the storyline. Now, for Rachel, her main goal is to go ahead and kill off Apocalypse as a way to save this reality, this world. Except when she goes into his room thinking that he's still going through his rebirth process, she comes to find out that he's not there at all. Nobody truly knows where Apocalypse will be at except for Nero. And matter of fact, she does walk into the room right behind Rachel Summers. And she's also able to poison Rachel. Now, luckily for Rachel, she has the powers of the Phoenix Force to get the heck out of there. Except when she does get the heck out of there, she's then confronted by Diogenes. He's there to help her out when she needs his help. And so he's all like, hey, let me go ahead and get you the heck out of here. And so that just wraps up the first issue of this three-part storyline. But as we get into the second chapter of this storyline, we do pick up 2 years later after the ending of the first chapter. And so now we pick up with Nero. Now we do learn that for Nero, she's been using a new mutant known as Plague. And so, of course, the kind of name right there, you have Plague being able to release a deadly virus out into the world that's slowly killing off people as it goes through different areas across the world. Now, for Nero, she's loving the idea of what she's seeing at the moment because right now it ties back into the whole idea of survival of the fittest. The weak will die off as the strong survives. Now, by this point in the timeline, we do learn that Rachel had established a new rebel group in this new reality or this far future in Marvel's timeline. And of course, she's calling this group the Ascani. And so this is the beginning of the whole idea of the Ascani. It was Rachel Summers who had put it all together. Now, we see her and some other mutants that she had met over time working together to shut down a power plant that's being used by Apocalypse people. Now, the people who work there, they're technically slaves. And matter of fact, we do pick back up with Blacksmith, who's still technically a child. I want to say he's like 14 or 15 years old, but he is seeing what's happening right now when it comes to Rachel and her people trying their best to shut down the power plant. But of course, they got to fight against a few members of Apocalypse forces. Now, for Blacksmith, he does watch one of the members of Rachel's group get destroyed. It was a cyborg. But you have Blacksmith say, hey, listen, I have the ability to fix the robot of yours that just got destroyed. But you have to take me with you so that I am able to help it out. Now, for Rachel Summers, she was down with the idea of bringing him along with her because, one, she realized he's a good person, but two, the ability to fix their broken robot ally and to bring it back to life. And so you have Rachel being able to escape with her Ascani group that she had just established, but also getting Blacksmith, but shutting down the power plant. But as we jump over to Nero, she does find out what happened in the power plant thanks to Rachel Summers. Now, we also learn here that ever since she met Rachel Summers at the end of the first chapter, and she lost that battle to Rachel, even though technically it was Rachel barely getting away, for Nero, she kind of been very upset about it to the point where it's been driving her mad, to the point where now she kind of believes that she's in charge of the entire empire of Apocalypse. Like he's no longer around, it's just me. I'm in charge. Let's go. Now, you do have Luminesca say, well, technically, you're only in charge for a short period of time. And that does tick off Nero. Now, for Nero, she let it slide for this time only. But hey, if she hears that again, then most likely Nero will go ahead and kill off Luminesca. But let's go ahead and jump over to the order of the witnesses. Now, for the order, they're trying to predict what will happen to Rachel Summers. Now, this is only for a brief moment, but we do learn here that for the order, they're beginning to believe in the possibility that for Rachel Summers, she can most likely be the downfall to Apocalypse. But the problem is, though, the question is, will she survive when it comes to bringing down the man who has ruled the earth for 2,000 years? But getting back over to Rachel Summers, we do learn that for Rachel, her and her crew, the Ascani, they had just found out that a colony of people were just killed off by the plague. Now, here's the thing. This people, they belong to Blacksmith. They had adopted him when his real parents, his biological parents, gave him up because he was not a mutant. And so right now, he's seeing everyone who took care of him over the years just laying there dead thanks to the plague. As a matter of fact, you have one of the members of the Ascani went ahead before the rest of the team had arrived, and she thought she was safe from the plague by being in her liquid state form. Unfortunately, she was still affected by the plague, and so she died off as well. Now, for Rachel, she realized there's somebody else here at the moment. Now, we kind of get into the issue I had with this storyline. Like, yes, it does a decent job when it comes to building onto the origin of Cable. But here comes my big problem with this storyline. It's the writing. Because you have characters sometimes just jump sides so easily, but without no actual reasoning to jump sides. Or they have a reason, but it's not good enough for them to change sides so easily. And the reason why I'm saying that because, okay, for Rachel Summers, she realized who she had detected. It was Luminesca and Chauvery. Now, these two characters, they're still working for Nero. But either way, they were told to keep Rachel Summers and the Ascani busy long enough to allow the plague to possibly kill them off. Now, for Rachel, she sends the rest of the crew away to get somewhere safe. It's only now her and also the robot from earlier to fight against these two characters. Now, like I said, when it comes to the writing, things just happen so fast because for Luminesca, she does express the fact that she no longer likes the idea of working for Nero. And so for Rachel Summers, she said, hey, why don't you just go ahead and join my side? But also try to find a way to get rid of the plague. And just like that, she was down to join Rachel Summers' side. And then she dies a page later because when she tries to stop the plague cloud from going forward to other areas, she unfortunately fails and she dies by the hand of the cloud. Now for Chauvery, he wants to go out of his way to save his sister's life, even though she is officially dead. Now you do have Rachel's robot being able to stop the guy before he died by the plague as well. And you didn't have Rachel use the powers of the Phoenix Force, but also her powers as a way to get rid of the plague completely. But while she was trying to do that, she died because the plague still affected her. Now, of course, with the powers of the Phoenix, she was able to come back to life. But again, she still died. And this death right here for her is really important because This is not the first time that she had officially died in Marvel Comics, but was brought back thanks to the Phoenix Force. But as we get into the ending for the second chapter, we do pick up with Diogenes right now with his partner from the Order of the Witnesses. And as the two of them walk outside, they're then confronted by no other than Nero. And you have Nero being able to grab them both and begin to interrogate them. But as we get into the final chapter for today's video, we do pick up with Nero continuing to torture Diogenes. Now, he's trying his best to withhold any information that he might give over to her, but she tells him, like, listen, your partner, that young boy, he told me everything I needed to know. I just wanted more information from you. And so then we come to find out that young boy that was his partner has been killed off by Nero. And you have Rachel find the young boy. Now, Rachel does use the powers of the Phoenix to kind of ease the pain for the young boy as he is dying off in her arms. Now, for Rachel Summers, she began to realize that somebody has to stop Nero. And so their main goal now is to head over to the Savage Land. Now, the Savage Land is the home to the Order of the Witnesses. And so for Rachel Summers, she knows that they're all very powerful psychics. She needs their help possibly to find a way to stop Apocalypse. And so you have Blacksmith being able to build up a ride to give him a chance to fly over to Antarctica. Now, when Rachel does arrive at the Order of Witnesses, she comes to find out they all have been killed off. Now, Diogenes, he tells her, like, hey, listen, when it came to Nero, she was here. She's still here now, but she had killed off every single member of the order as a way to pass time until you had arrived. And so as soon as he tells her that, just like that, the forces of Nero arrive. Now, for Rachel Summers, she tells some members of her crew to go ahead and get away. Now, they do, but they also find some children that were being kept there by the Order of the Witnesses. And so you have those members being able to save those children. But for Rachel, it all goes into the final battle between her and Nero. Now, for Rachel, unfortunately, she does get her butt kicked by Nero. But while that's happening, you then have things begin to play in the mind of Rachel Summers. These flashes of different moments in time when she had died or when she had time traveled. And so for Rachel, she began to realize that her whole life was planned out for her. Like there was some kind of grand design to lead her into the far future to begin the birth of the Ascani, to be the one to possibly begin the progress of protecting Cable when he travels into the future to protect her baby brother. And so right now, is Rachel kind of wondering like, okay, is this what the Phoenix was trying to get me ready for? Because I have died so many times over and over again, but again, I was always brought back to life. And so maybe all those different deaths were also getting me ready for this exact moment. And so when we jump back over to the present day, it's really more of Rachel saying she's no longer afraid of death. She's now ready to die. But before she does that, she has to achieve some things in her life. Now, for Nero, she wants to have the power of the Phoenix Force, and you have Rachel give it to her. And really, this is Rachel trying to teach Nero a lesson. Like, you wanted my power, and now here I am giving that power over to you. And unfortunately, you are unable to hold on to the power of the Phoenix Force. And so you have Nero begin to beg Rachel to get rid of the Phoenix Force. Now, luckily for her, Rachel was able to reabsorb the Phoenix Force, but she does send it away. In her mind, she no longer needs it anymore. And so the Phoenix Force goes away. Now for Nero, she also realized that she had now lost her mutant ability. And so with all those other abilities that she had absorbed over the years, they're also gone as well. Now for Nero, she's not done just yet. You see, for Nero, what she did was she had brought a machine that was created by Apocalypse, and her goal was to use the machine as a way to kill herself off, but also Rachel Summers. But here comes the big catch. You see, Blacksmith found a device earlier and he was able to deactivate it. And so, unfortunately, she was not able to use that machine against Rachel at all. Now, you have Rachel go ahead and let the young girl live. Matter of fact, you have Rachel give her some rations to hopefully survive the harsh weather of Antarctica. And then she leaves. And so the book does close on the note where you have Rachel Summers realize what is her future going to be like now, stuck in the future. That now her goal is to wait until Cable comes into the future, raise her younger brother, and get him ready to fight against Apocalypse. And that really ends the whole idea of the series, where Rachel Summers becomes the Mother Ascani. And so, with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But, guys, I'll see you in the next comic book video.